Hello, and thank you for joining us for our live recording of the 555 here at Autistic Radio. This becomes an edited podcast in a few days' time, and if you go to your usual podcast outlet, you'll find the 555 there. Before we go directly to the Facebook part of the show, Harry's Spectrum Voices, let's talk about Autistic Radio between Christmas and New Year. We call it Radio Days. It's part of the origin of Autistic Radio and Autistic Association that we are a very grassroots, radical means from the roots, organisation that started because we had our own need to communicate with each other, keep each other company, and we picked the most difficult times to do that. And between Christmas and New Year is one of the times that the founders of Autistic Radio decided to get together for 4 days, the 27th, 28th, 29th, 30th. Between Christmas and New Year, we can distract ourselves at Christmas, we can distract ourselves perhaps at New Year. But that in-between bit, for many of us, because we're no longer in contact with family, many of us, or we've had enough of family and need a break from them, that period between Christmas and New Year in the autistic world is generally the trickiest bit. Autistic Radio Days was our way of sharing that with other people, and people listened to what we were thinking and how we felt, and that gave them solace round the world. That's really where the podcast started. And we've developed further, and we're always here. Every week we're broadcasting in some form, and every week we're putting out some new recording podcast. But we're still there every Radio Days between Christmas and New Year. I have got an idea that I want to put past everyone without speaking to them beforehand, and the way I want to do it is to say that we have 2 rooms during Radio Days. We have a backstage private room, which is still on StreamYard, which people can still access very easily by just pressing a button and it opening up in their browser on their phone or on a computer, and they can either talk or they can speak with us, and it's all off camera. And that backstage room, I'm suggesting that we keep that open throughout the whole of the 4 hours of Radio Days, at the same time as we have the broadcast room. And in the broadcast room we'll have comments between the podcasts, and we'll have the live shows, the 444 live show and the 555, and we'll have a live show of those every week, but every day. So can you get the head round what I'm trying to get round here, and try, if I'm explaining it in my cat-hand way, that there's 2 rooms, and one is nothing is recorded, cameras off, drop in and just say hello even if you're feeling glum room, and the other room is the broadcasting room where we all kind of know where we're going, you know?
I think I understand, and it reminds me of the first time I sort of crossed over from first listening to your back catalog of podcasts, so old ones, and then coming, I think, through Facebook or somewhere, and just listening to you live led me to attending along with you. And I don't know if that's what you're trying to capture, uh, some really good opportunity for people who have been lurking around and could benefit.
Yeah, I think the thing is, Teresa, you are a bold person, brave, because you managed to take a higher step up, to go from listening to us live on Facebook or on LinkedIn or wherever else we're going out now live, and then commenting, and then being asked to come and join the 444, and then from there. But the jump from speaking out and being recorded was a big jump that not everybody's ready for. So I'm trying to have this backstage area where people, that's all they can do if they like. They can just hang out with us, and that be part of our remit to create that space for people who are thinking about their neurodiversity, perhaps in similar age groups to us. People want to ask questions to us as a post-diagnostic or a pre-diagnostic service and regular.
That makes sense. Although I will say it took me about 6 months.
Well, that illustrates it, doesn't it? Because right now, when we put this out as an edit, there'll be a lot of people that immediately download and listen to it. And they'll do it that way because they don't want to be listening to us live, or it feels a little bit exposing. They prefer to listen to it later. And that's lurking, isn't it? And lurking is what we need as autistic people a lot of the time. We need to get our head and our sense around things, a short step on ladders before we get right up there and into things. And the shorter the steps. And so I think backstage is how I want to sell this as it's not recorded, it's not on camera, it is text, and it is voice if you like.
Yeah, not many of us are going to even be aware that these lurkers are there unless they somehow break cover, as it were, or we are alerted to it by, say, yourself, who may have access to that knowledge.
Yeah, there are people who have been in contact in different ways, or who have dropped in, and it feels still a bit too big, but they wouldn't have minded just hanging around if the 444 that we created hadn't got that sense that, yes, we are actually recording it. The 444 has become a magazine program where people just bring what they want to say, and it's always something to do with autism. But it's now a kind of a group of people who generally are there with occasional guests coming in. It's turned into a recording program, and people need the other bit where it's just a hang out with like-minded people, or have somebody to talk to because you've never spoken about your neurodiversity before,
I think it's a really good idea. I will say I had a panicky feeling when I crossed over somehow. And I believe I made a comment. I don't know how I was there. I think it was on Facebook. And then I got a message saying, you can come over here. And suddenly I freaked out. Although the next week I found my way.
You see, even somebody like yourself had that freak out, had that autistic reaction. Every step for this, we have to make however we can get our heads around it to make it easier for people to join in with something, and definitely not feel the pressure that just because we're out here making examples by recording ourselves, that they don't have to do that. They don't have to show their face. They don't have to be anything other than an avatar or a name, if they like, and that's fine. And that's a stepping stone that people can take, I reckon.
Yeah, that kind of co-presence isn't often offered in general society. If you imagine, say, the physical version of what we do is like, okay, on a given date we all turn up somewhere in a building to meet. That would be quite off-putting for a few of us. So to have a space where you can just dip your toe in and feel it out without having to be seen or heard is very, very positive. Yeah.
So I want us to experiment this year on radio days between Christmas and New Year with having the backstage area open to all from the whole of the 4 hours. So we'll start at 3 o'clock, and at 3 o'clock I will make some kind of live off the cuff thing, and then a pre-record will come in, and then after it I will speak again, and then something else will happen. And during the 2 hours before the an hour and 3/4 before the 444 time, we can also have the backstage area open all the time. So when I'm not speaking live, I'll be in the backstage area. And other people can be in that backstage area as well if they're thinking about coming and talking before they go and do something. And there's a couple of people that might do something from America. I've got the fellow that dropped in at the 444 saying that they're going to come in on the 30th. And I've sent out an email to the guy who runs the Danifesto, the Liverpudlian fella. Or, well, Wirral anyway, I can't remember exactly. You've got to be careful with these slight definitions up in that area, different football teams, etc. So it might be that something groovy happens in that 2 hours in a kind of live context as well. But all the way through the open backstage area, and then when we come off air, maybe we do that cool down bit in that backstage area as well, and somebody might be hanging about in there to talk. But making the availability this year means that people might use it next year. It's about making it available and having it as a model, and then seeing if we can get this local autism charity to sell that model so that we can demonstrate what we feel that we need that will be useful. So now it's time to join the show sponsored by coldpack.co.uk. Harry's Spectrum Voices, here every week, and I'm taking it over, Harry, as you can hear, putting my own spin on what you're doing, but we're looking now at the first post. It's a beautiful post that I can see up there on the screen of an enormous Christmas tree with something to celebrate, I'm hoping. It's from the Autistic Poet. I love churches. I love exploring old buildings which are dark, quiet, and full of history. Sitting in a church full of people, singing and inhaling wafts of incense is completely different. Today I had a Christmas service for my school, as well as an unexpected singing, dancing assembly, which sent me into a panic at 9 a.m. in the morning. A great start to the day. Christmas is always a difficult time of year. There are flashing lights everywhere, including my neighbour's house. Christmas songs on repeat, and there is an expectation to join in with social events at work and at home, many of which are spontaneous and come with no warning. Breaking up for Christmas can be a challenge for autistic children and autistic teachers themselves. The sudden change to the routine and knowing that busy days are coming can be daunting. Christmas shopping is hard. More people in the shops and a pressure to buy gifts by a certain time. Fewer places to park, extra traffic, all these things contribute to more anxiety. Christmas time always feels different, and while I know I sound just like a Grinch, I am always happy to get back to normal on January the 1st. Like every year, it's taken me 3 days to get used to the Christmas tree in our living room. I don't know why. I guess it's all part of the condition of my autism. With a big smiley face, winking and laughing.
I'm picking up on the phrase there, expectation to join in with social events at work and at home, many of which are spontaneous and come with no warning. My first kind of reaction to that is, I quite like spontaneous. I prefer it to organised. You know, if someone tells me something's happening next week, I just go crazy, you know. Whereas, like, if they just say, here, now, let's do this, I either say yes or no, you know. But no involved panic and long-lasting preparation. But maybe what they mean is, the spontaneous thing is like, can you come up later, which then would put you into a panic, or do you want to go there tomorrow, or even next week? But yeah, they've described it quite well, the tensions of the time.
It seems to me that there's both things in here. There's a recognition that it is exciting and it is, you know, something's being done, something's being prepared for, at the same time as the pressure of those things. Christmas is something either you can, you know, make your own accommodations for and miss out on the things you don't really enjoy and take your own version of Christmas with you. I don't like being pressurised into anything, and I think the same that Robbie was talking about earlier in the 444 about if somebody tries to push you into forced things, and I'm thinking now about forced fun and forced partiness and forced jollity, I shrink away from that pretty quickly. But if I'm allowed to have my own space around Christmas, I can really enjoy Christmas. I can take little bits from it, I can hide from other bits of it, and I can use it that way. It's all down to the control you have over your own life, really, isn't it?
This is reminding me of some things that I've enjoyed in the past. For example, at this really awkward age, maybe say 12 years old, I really didn't fit in at all at school. It's a terrible age when you don't fit in. But if it was something like a secret Santa where you just had to buy a gift, no one would know it was from you. I still have very fond memories of that, of people not knowing who it was from and thinking it was an excellent gift. And then I could remain silent and participate, sort of.
I'm thinking this aligns with my earlier thoughts on value and spending. You know, this idea of like, yeah, I was talking here about shopping, but wasn't that in particular? I was thinking about value. I was thinking of the value we get out of Christmas, like what we're looking for from it, what it means to us, that kind of value. I don't think you can buy that, you know. You can experience it, yeah. But maybe it's availability, maybe it's just openings, maybe it's just the stuff that can only happen at this time of year. But I think it's more like, well, I was just listening to what Jules was saying about taking what you can or what you feel you need from the time. My value system's different. I don't really see much I can take from this time. You know, when I was a drinker, yeah, I could go out and socialise, no problem. But I was kind of, you know, drinking. I don't do that anymore. And so I'm not saying it's a great loss to me. I'm just saying, in my heart, I wasn't really part of it. You know, I was just playing along on another level. And I think maybe that's what you were hinting at there, Jules, is that you play it at your own level. You may just sit there and indulge in what's on offer. Yeah. But the craziness, you know, I can leave that to the crazy people.
I have had some really difficult experiences at Christmas, and I expect Christmas, because it's such a heightened time of year, to continue at different times, to be times where there are difficult, big emotions with different events happening, and I think that's okay. There's a certain chaos to people's emotions, their traumas, their memories, their nostalgia, the rush of commercialism in this, the different family pressures people are under, that whole madness of the whole thing that takes us over culturally, as a big melting pot for people to get themselves sorted in and sorted through. I see as a cultural thing, like a mad Winterfest, like the harvest is in, the days are cold, we've brewed our drugs and our beers and our things. We need a winter blowout and I think we can invent it and frame it for ourselves. It doesn't have to be imposed.
That sounds like the old Roman festival of Saturnalia.
Yeah, I was thinking that too. And that is how I ground myself in thinking that human beings have been doing this. It doesn't really have to do with any element of it that we don't enjoy. And I know my whole family knows this about me. In fact, I think I'm going to be the one to tell each grandchild eventually someday about the origins of this really being what you just said, Ray. Um, my favorite part of it is because I don't think I would put up a tree, but I do, for when everybody comes to visit. I put it up as late as possible because my favorite time to have those lights on the tree is after the season is over. And if I put up late enough, it will last well into January, which is when you really need it, in my opinion.
I have a tree up right now. I don't remember putting up one the last couple of years. We used to have big trees in the big house. It used to be a big deal. One in the drawing room, one in the sitting room, one outside the front door that we grew until it got too big that we had to cut it down and use it for firewood. I will probably go to our woods and I will collect some holly with berries on it and some fir, and I'll bring that in and I will have that around the wood burning stove and the chimney, and it will make the place smell. There's bits of seasonality to it. There's bits of wrapping up for the winter. There's bits of bacchanalia to it. There's bits of I feel it really, as soon as you start to see it as a pick and mix rather than as a bag of obligations, it can be a pleasurable thing for even the people who've had shitty times. And, you know, shitty times can be overcome partly by putting better memories on top of them.
I find it a struggle. Sorry, hello? I find it a struggle. I find it oppressive. I find it claustrophobic. Every year, things seem to be bad around Christmas. I pulled back and I resent being told I'm Scrooge. I resent being called humbug because I'm not stopping anyone else from doing what they want to do. I just don't want to be involved in it.
Yeah, and I love that, GR. I think your resentment at these horrible things that people are saying is warranted. You know, why should you follow their cultural traditions without insult. You should be allowed to do whatever you damn well like. And I'm sure you're not going around trying to make their life worse. It's not great for everybody. It really isn't. I'm putting an alternative which says that the way I've worked it out in my life is a whole cornucopia of some bloody awful times, and I could tell you stories which would make you cry, that are associated with Christmas, and other times that have been joyful. For me, I've lived a different life of cornucopia, and what you're doing, I applaud. And please spend time with me between Christmas and New Year and hang out and moan and say this isn't for you backstage. I'd love it. I'd enjoy being with you.
I'll try and be there. I mean, I don't go anywhere. I bought some turkey fillets this week, and that is the only thing. I have a roast dinner on a Sunday. I have a roast dinner at lunchtime, and that's the only thing that will change, because it won't be my usual midweek. My cousin will probably turn up, and she brings me a hamper, and that usually has mince pies in there. That's it. I send 4 Christmas cards. I don't want to go to town I want to go to the cinema in town, but I don't particularly want to go at the moment because there's a Christmas market and it's lights, noise, crowds. But I'm hoping to sneak in on what's the Tuesday, the 30th. I'm hoping to sneak into town on the 30th and catch the new Avatar movie in the morning, and that's it.
Yeah, I applaud you. I think what you're doing is you've worked out these things that will treat yourself, and you're giving them to yourself. It reminds me very much of Hercule Poirot, the fictional detective, where at Christmas he's got this tiny little half kilo of Belgian chocolates that he's coveting to give himself this treat on his own at Christmas, and I think he keeps being diverted from it. But whatever floats your boat, it is Christmas. It's different to the time of year. You're having a different meal, and you're giving yourself these treats, and you're having to avoid other people.
If I'm Hercule Poirot, I guess that makes you Captain Hastings.
Have you seen the price of chocolate these days?
I'll just buy half the amount of good stuff.
I have to, we do Christmas Eve, not Christmas Day, and I'm thinking this year of changing it somehow so that there's less of the feelings, the not pleasant ones. But anyway, there are small children, and so, and in most cases I enjoy it. But on Christmas Day, my daughter and I just go to a movie. Hardly anybody is there. I don't know if your theater is open then, GR, but it's an interesting time to go into a movie because it won't be Christmas inside there.
This is interesting because it's been really heavily promoted that we have our home theatres now with all the sophisticated equipment, and yet people still seem to enjoy going to the cinema. Can understand that technologically and as an experience it's probably way better. But for me, that is a highly intimidating environment, even if it's empty, which I've heard people promise it is, and then when you get there, it isn't. So, yeah, I just thought I'd put that in there regarding the cinema thing.
Since I got my bus pass at 60 up here in Scotland, I looked at all kinds of discounts, and one of them is that the local cinema has a 2-for-1 deal if you've got their cards, to go in on a Monday and see whatever's being shown. So my wife and I now are going 2 for 1 on a Monday, and we've taken the rest of the time. We'll visit the town for other purposes and then go in the cinema. There's nobody there, just a few people, and it's a very nice experience. It's almost as though it could be designed for autistic people. One film I saw was I Swear, which is neurodivergent. The main character is a true life guy from Galashiels, the town I was watching the film in. A Tourette's guy who was given an award by the Queen before she died for his work bringing the knowledge of Tourette's to people and setting up self-help stuff. And the film I've just seen was The Choral, which had themes of neurodiversity in it as well. I recommend people to get out of their comfort zone and get out to the theatre if they can find a quiet spot.
Or a quiet theater, like a small independent one. I live just, I think I could walk there in 3 minutes.
I've fought long and hard for this comfort zone.
Yeah,
A
that's
year
another
ago,
option.
A year ago, I went to Chichester, where they had a play called Redlands, which was about the 1967 Rolling Stones drug bust, which was obviously my interest. That was the first time I'd been to the theatre probably in 30 plus years. And the last time I went was a pantomime. And afterwards, my friend said, "What did you think of the play?" And I said, I honestly don't know, because I've got no point of reference for it, because I hadn't been to see any other plays ever.
I thought you were going to say there you didn't take in any of the play because you were so hyper aware of the environment, which is what happens to me when I'm in public spaces. It's like I totally miss what's going on because I'm just so hyper aware of where I am.
It was like trying to fill in. There wasn't much of a back. Sometimes there were backgrounds, sometimes there weren't. There was so it was and there was the stage was on various levels, and every once in a while, like a newspaper seller would appear at the back of the auditorium, and I didn't find it, because it was sold out. I didn't find that so much as a problem, but trying to get the space of where it all was I've talked about this before, feeling my position in space, and I couldn't get my position in space to all these various changes on the stage and people appearing behind me.
Yeah, if people start coughing around me, I'm gone.
I was going to say, if it's a not that I want you to go if you don't want to go, but if it's a super quiet day and you went to this little independent place that I'm talking about, the balcony is a good dark place where you'll not feel as surrounded, especially if you go to the very, very back row. Somehow, the very back row to me is less of a problem.
The back row.
I did it in high school. We had an auditorium because, I could see everybody, but they couldn't see me. But that led to a problem once when I got an award, which I really did not appreciate because of the idea that I had to walk past everybody and get up there. But I guarantee the back row is a great place.
Robbie's saying in text that he can't cope with going to theatre or cinema on his own.
Most of the things I enjoy doing stop for Christmas, which is what makes it difficult. And going out anywhere might only difficult, particularly as I'm in a village and it's a difficult journey into Cambridge.
There were some nice photos you put up recently, Robbie, of your folk music meetings.
And obviously I'm going to hope that you're going to spend some time backstage with me the 28th, 29th, 30th, and also the 27th at Radio Days there, Robbie. The next post I want to look at is from Pete Warmby Books. We know Pete Warmby, well-known author, lots of things worth following to do with Pete. And the meme is, severe autism is a misleading term for learning or intellectual disabilities with co-occurring autism. Both learning disabilities and autism may require different supports and accommodations. So we're asking the general public to stop seeing those who have a label of autism who also have other labels that go with them that are other versions of disabilities that add together to make somebody who challenged in lots of ways by their experience of the outside world. And that term, severe autism, rather than an autistic person with other co-occurring conditions, is what we're being asked to look at. And then there's something else saying that both learning disabilities and autism require different supports. I'm autistic, but I don't have a really defined learning disability. I have differences in the way I learn, but I wouldn't be seen as a disabled person under that. But other people are. Other people are seen in other ways of looking at them, that there is another label. How do people feel about this? Does it matter, some of this stuff? Is it irritating?
Just in response to what you said there, have you not, since your diagnosis, reconsidered the idea of disability in your own personal sense? I have. The things that I thought were just part of me that I now realise are a form of disability. Maybe it's just rewording it and reframing it, but yeah, I just thought I would say that there.
Yeah, that's a really probing and personal question, Ray. And I'm answering it here on Autistic Radio Public. Yes, absolutely. To realise your own autism, having lived a life as an adult, adapting yourself to the world around you and so-called functioning within that way, and then being destabilised with a whole set of new thoughts around your own autism and what that means. Yes, destabilising, absolutely. What do I now think of disability? I feel that disability is a compound experience. You can have a level of apparent disability, the loss of something, but still be able to have supports that almost eradicate that disability to all intents and purposes for your life. Spectacles I'm using now, I wouldn't have been able to see in previous generations if I wasn't using spectacles. But I don't feel disabled by my lack of sight. I don't feel disabled by my loss of hearing. I don't feel disabled by hurting more when I move as I grow older. For me, it's a judgment you make yourself at a whole group of things, and lots of things that would disable people that I experience don't disable me because of the position I'm in, because of the world around me, the things I have available to me. So yes, does disability mean something different to me? Yes, it does. I've had to think about it.
See, the one I think about is being ineffective and not being able to communicate effectively. Not even able to get a sentence out without editing it. That can go way back to maybe early things, physical things like, kind of a stammer or a speech impediment, which I had to get some therapy for when I was very young. That can affect your presence, your public performance, your presentation, the way things mean to you, how you express that meaning. So, yeah, when you're confronted with society and its structures, and you cannot figure out how to connect with it and relate to it, I'm now beginning to think that's a disability.
A lot of
I
my
was
problems.
go, Robbie.
A lot of my problems is even if you say autism, people are already making assumptions about what your needs are. And giving these extra labels like severe, it does not help, because every autistic person's needs are different. If you've got an intellectual disability, your needs will be different. So it's unhelpful. But people will, if I say something autistic, they're already deciding what my needs are without actually speaking to someone who actually knows and who's actually lived it.
I was thinking earlier this week about something similar. It is that all for so many years of my life, people have actually thought that I had a disability, especially in my larger family, my cousins, aunts, uncles, and things. And it was because my father had a disability. And I think because I wasn't presenting the same way as everybody else, they were assuming it was something like what he had or something like that. And you could feel it. I could feel it my whole life. The interesting thing now is, though, that I have a name for it, whether I think of it as a disability or don't think of it as disability. I feel like it's sort of just the correct operating manual. But then the room is different than it used to be. People feel differently than they used to feel.
Sorry, I didn't mean to put you off there, Teresa. I was trigger happy. I was just rereading the first paragraph there about important to recognise it's severe autism. So when we think about severe autism, it's a thing that we felt maybe 30 years ago when things hadn't kind of opened up in our knowledge regarding the word autism. It's often erroneously named. It's actually a co-occurrence of autism, which I think we all share to a certain extent, and some form of learning disability. So Pete is proposing here that what is seen as severe autism in general society is a conjunction of autism and learning disability or well, I think he's correct there, learning disability. But maybe not, I'm not sure. A bit vague about that one. But I see what he's putting together here as a composite for that term that he's put in little quotation scare quotes.
I think the thing is that we're quite interested in autism, and most of the world couldn't give a fuck. And they want severe autism. It's easy. What's wrong with a person? Oh, he's autistic. How bad is it? Oh, it's severe. Okay, won't expect that much of this person. I'll dismiss him. You know, that is the level at which most people give a fuck. Us discussing it, I suppose, has value because we're looking at our own thoughts. It's a way of getting a sense of these things.
It reminds me of one from a week or two ago, where they a post was about Audie, having both autism and ADHD. So this conversation's a bit like that, and I think it would need to include, if we were to think about it this way, more than just learning disabilities. So more profound sensory issues and different things. And I don't know, do you collect, do you, maybe it would be helpful in some instances. I think sometimes we should also talk about it because it's a spectrum and we represent a, probably like a neighborhood in the spectrum.
Yep, you're right. We should always be talking about these things. And there's the thing that Pete's saying. Conflating learning disabilities with autism is often used to silence autistic voices too. Silence autistic voices too. Unfortunately, with claims of faking it, as we don't have the same lived experience as a person with learning disabilities as well as their autism. The whole thing is a bit of a mess, and I'm reluctant to post about it for fear of being misinterpreted, if I'm honest. So when Pete's been thinking about this, he's actually thinking, goodness me, this is a political football here. This is a hot potato. Some people are going to see my words, and if I'm even with the best will, it might not mean the same thing to them as his intention when he writes them down. I'm an autistic man, and I don't mind identifying the things that have disabled me in certain circumstances throughout my life. As Ray has illustrated, you look back and you see, if I hadn't been autistic, I would have had a better opportunity here, there and everywhere. I frame it differently. I frame it as a social prejudice, almost as if I'm in the wrong class, or I'm the wrong colour, or the wrong type of person. The cut of my jib, being an autistic person, did not fit the social framework. So I view it less as the things that have disabled me, I view more as a prejudice against my identity rather than a disability of me.
I feel like if this was explored to its fullest, people would then learn a whole new need, so it's not the right reaction to say, if you don't have profound autism, you don't have autism. What he's saying is you have autism underneath other things that create issues for you. Um, I feel like what might end up happening is that people who think profoundly autistic people are not worth their time or they can't communicate with them, they would end up learning that, yes, you could communicate with them. You just aren't communicating with them. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, in response to that, Teresa, I've put in text as if autism alone is not enough, to justify sympathy, empathy, care to a certain extent, because it's not like severe disability.
And it also is, and then it also isn't, because I can remember this time when I was in college that I did this volunteering where you took small children who had profound autism on a trampoline, and they were maybe closer to being babies or toddlers. And I could feel that something different was happening and that we were somehow actually communicating when we were doing that. The the small toddler and I.
I'm going to add some text to this conversation. Autism is a label for a pre-existing disability. I feel that in my relationships. Another person, when I had a Care Act assessment, I was treated as if I had a learning disability. Another person, I'm just like you, but I'm different. Capitalism works by dividing and getting different groups to fight each other. So, that is a thing. This new idea of autism as an identity, as something that people live with and can be a disability, is a disability in certain circumstances and not, and very variable. It's a new group of people. We are these late diagnosed group of people. We're the people who didn't know about it, and we're a bigger group of people than the previous people who knew about it. So there is a political change in that, and people need to hold on to the power that they have gained in their disability. That's normal, isn't it? Another person says that diagnosis focuses on the deficits and ignores any strengths. Another person points out, as if autism alone is not enough, very similar to what Ray was saying about, yes, actually, autism for some people on its own makes them feel as though, yeah, I'm just autistic, I'm not disabled. But for other people, actually my autism is a disability to me. It is making things difficult for me, and you're not recognising it because I look capable in other circumstances. A lot of people say similar things to that. Another person says that the disability is ableism of normality. So the disability is enforced upon us. It doesn't need to be there. It's created unnecessarily. We didn't lose a leg and find it difficult to get up steps. You put up steps when you knew we had lost a leg. People assume that if you're asked for help, you're asking to take it away from someone else. Okay, so it's about this competition of need thing that somebody's commenting on there. And I think having conversations between different autistic groups and facilitating that in any way through Autistic Radio is where we're at on this. We can't be at each other's throats. We can't allow them to make us into factions.
I'm thinking it's a lovely image Pete put up, given his anxiety at the latter part of his statement, about how he felt he would come over writing these thoughts out. But the image he's put up kind of succinct, checkerboard, odd.
Well, thank you everybody for how you've contributed today to Harry's 555 Live, here every Sunday, 5:55 UK time, around about 1 o'clock in central North America. A reminder that we are sponsored here by coldpack.co.uk. Anything you spend at coldpack.co.uk is a direct contribution to the work here at Autistic Radio. Harry will be back with the 555 next week, and I'm going to go away and prepare the different ideas that we have for Autistic Radio days between Christmas and New Year. We've made a decision here on air that we're going to have a space, a green room, a backstage area where anybody can join and talk with other autistic people. There'll be somebody there whilst we're broadcasting our podcast and other live events for the 27th, 28th, 29th and 30th of December. See you there. Cheers everyone.